When I was 12, my parents told me to man up and find my own ride. My name's Wesley and I'm 32 now. But some wounds don't heal, they calcify. Get harder with time. I don't talk about my childhood much. Not because I've forgotten, but because saying it out loud makes it feel real again. Like I'm 12 and standing in the middle of that Chevron parking lot all over again. Clutching a Snickers bar I didn't have money to pay for. Watching my parents' Honda Accord tail lights disappear into the Texas night. It happened in September, right after Labor Day weekend. We'd gone on one of those forced family bonding trips my mom always insisted we needed. Except bonding in our house meant everyone pretending my dad's lectures were profound wisdom. And my older brother Cameron's every mediocre thought was a gift to humanity. I was the quiet one, too sensitive, too soft-spoken, always in the way. On that particular day, I'd knocked over my Dr. Pepper in the back seat. Cameron, who was 17 then and already a master at deflecting blame, smirked and said, "He did it on purpose." Dad pulled over at the next chevron off Interstate 35, eyes blazing. "You're not a baby anymore," he barked. "You want to act grown? You can figure your own way home." At first I laughed. I thought it was one of his twisted jokes. But then the trunk of the Honda slammed shut and they just drove away. I ran after them for a second, calling their names, but my voice cracked and disappeared under the roar of 18-wheelers and traffic. A clerk poked his head out from the station door, Marlboro dangling from his lips, and gave me a look like I was just another stray someone had dumped. That night, I slept behind the station's dumpster, curled into myself, heart pounding every time headlights swept across the asphalt. I remember counting the hours. 85 miles from home. No money, no phone, not a single soul to call. The clerk refused to help when I asked. "Ain't a daycare kid," he muttered. I didn't cry. I think that part of me froze that night, the part that believed family meant anything unshakable. Eventually, I found a payphone the next morning and called a teacher I trusted, Mrs. Rodriguez. She was the one who picked me up in her old Buick and drove me back to town. I told her my parents must have forgotten me. She didn't believe it. I could tell by the way she gripped the steering wheel, but she didn't press. She just dropped me off, made sure I had a sandwich, and told me I could always call her. When I walked through the front door of our ranch house, no one looked surprised. No one said sorry. Mom glanced up from her laptop and said, "Took you long enough." Cameron was on the couch playing Xbox and muttered, "Should have walked faster." Dad never even acknowledged it happened. Just nodded at me the next morning over his Cheerios like everything was normal. That was the day I stopped trying to belong. I finished high school like a phantom in the hallways. Ate lunch alone in the library, studied in silence. I got out as soon as I turned 18, worked 3 jobs, dishwasher at Denny's, stockboy at Target, weekend landscaping, and put myself through community college, then transferred to University of Houston without telling anyone. I changed my number, never left a forwarding address, and for the first time started breathing on my own. I'd spent the last 14 years building a life they knew nothing about. I became a software engineer working for a tech startup in Austin. Moved to a city where no one ever said the words, "man up," like it was a cure for trauma. I had friends who thought of me as steady and reliable. I even adopted a rescue dog named Buddy, a nervous little mutt who flinched at raised voices. We understood each other. I never thought I'd hear from them again, but last month a letter showed up at my apartment. No return address, but the handwriting on the front, loopy, dramatic, was unmistakably Mom's. I opened it slowly, half expecting some legal threat or another passive-aggressive note about abandoning the family. But instead it was a thick envelope. Inside, a wedding invitation from Cameron, engraved in gold lettering, all showy and traditional, the kind of thing that screamed rented elegance and fake smiles. Stone Creek Country Club, it read. And tucked inside was a folded piece of notebook paper, handwritten from them. * Wesley, we know things have been distant between us, but Cameron is getting married and it would mean a lot to the family if you could attend. He asked that we reach out to you personally. We hope you'll come. We'd love to reconnect. Mom and Dad. Reaching out like nothing ever happened. Like they hadn't left me to rot behind a Chevron dumpster when I was 12 and never once apologized. Like Cameron wasn't the golden boy whose shadow I was never allowed to step out of. I sat there staring at the note for a long time. My fingers tightened around the edge of the paper until it crinkled, and for a moment I almost tossed it into the trash. Almost. But then something in me paused. I flipped the invitation over. Fancy venue, outdoor ceremony, dress code formal. There was even a QR code to RSVP online. As if I were just another distant relative. As if they hadn't taught me what it meant to be disposable. I stared at the note again. It would mean a lot to the family, Interesting because I wasn't the same kid they dumped on the side of the highway anymore, and if they wanted me back in the picture, I had a few ideas about how I could frame it. Let's just say I didn't RSVP right away. But I did start planning quietly, carefully like I always have. Because some debts don't get paid in words, they get paid in presence. And sometimes showing up is the loudest thing you can do. The moment I saw Cameron's fiancée's name, Amanda Grace Whitmore, printed in embossed cursive on the invitation, I knew exactly what kind of wedding this was going to be. Upper middle class perfection, string quartet, personalized cocktail napkins with their initials. The Whitmores were local royalty back in my hometown of Cedar Falls. Old money, old gossip, old grudges. I remembered Amanda vaguely from school, always dressed like she was heading to church or a job interview, even at 15. The kind of girl who never had to fight for attention because it was given to her like an inheritance. So Cameron landed her. Of course he did. The charming oldest son, quarterback smile, parents who orbited around him like he was the sun. My parents probably wore their approval like jewelry. I looked her up online that same night. She was everything you'd expect. Dental hygienist, curated Instagram with inspirational quotes and latte art, engagement photos under a tree that looked like it came from Southern Living magazine. And there, buried in the tags of one post, was a link to their wedding website. Optional. Please arrive 30 minutes before the ceremony begins. Shuttle transportation available from the guest hotel. We are so excited to celebrate with friends and family. Asterisk. Family. Right? There was even a section titled, Our Love Story. Cameron had written it himself, or at least it was written from his perspective. It was all so polished it could have been written by a PR firm. Asterisk, I was always the kind of guy who believed in fate. But nothing prepared me for Amanda, her grace, her kindness, the way she looked at me and saw more than just the guy I used to be. Asterisk. More than the guy you used to be. I read that line 3 times. And then I remembered what he used to be. A bully in khakis. A liar with a halo. The same boy who'd once pushed me into Miller's Pond at my own 12th birthday party and told our parents I slipped. I had to walk home soaked while everyone else ate cake. They laughed about it for years. I wasn't planning to go to the wedding. Not until I saw that line. Because here was Cameron rewriting his own history, pretending there was no collateral damage in the path he took to manhood. And now the same people who left me behind, literally, were calling me family again. I didn't RSVP online. That would have been too easy. Instead, I used an old friend from college, Jordan, who now works in logistics, to send me a high-end formal suit, custom fit, midnight navy, with a vest that looked like it belonged in a James Bond film. I even booked a room at the same luxury guest hotel listed on the site, paying up front and under a slightly different name. I didn't want them to know I was coming. Not yet. I figured if they were going to try to pretend the past didn't exist, I'd give them a taste of their own game. 2 weeks before the wedding, I sent a single email to the RSVP address provided. It was Amanda's, saying, looking forward to the celebration. Please don't mention I'm attending. I'd like to surprise the happy couple. Wesley. No reply, but it was marked as read. The week leading up to the wedding, I cleared my schedule, prepped Buddy with a sitter, and packed light. Just the suit, a pair of polished Oxford shoes, and one old photo, folded and worn, of me at 12 years old standing outside that Chevron with a backpack and a blank stare. Mrs. Rodriguez had taken it the morning she picked me up. She'd printed it years later and mailed it to me with a note that simply said, "You survived." I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but it felt right to bring it. When I arrived at Stone Creek the day before the wedding, the place looked like a set from a romantic comedy. Rolling hills, polished wooden beams, fairy lights strung through oak trees, perfect weather, perfect people. Every detail was calculated to broadcast warmth and elegance, but the kind that excluded people like me by design. The rehearsal dinner was in full swing on the outdoor terrace. I watched from a quiet corner, sunglasses on, suit jacket folded over my arm. No one noticed me at first, and then I saw her. Mom. She looked thinner than I remembered, like a balloon that had slowly deflated but tried to maintain its shape. Her hair was dyed a deeper brown, almost auburn, and she wore a pearl necklace that clashed with her sunburnt neckline. She was laughing, that high, brittle laugh that always sounded like she was trying to convince everyone she was fine. And beside her, Dad, wearing a blazer that probably still had the same money clip in the inside pocket. The one he used to flick open dramatically whenever he wanted to remind us he was providing. His face was puffier than I remembered, like life had finally started pushing back. They were talking to Amanda's parents, smiling, shaking hands, praising Cameron with that same sugary tone that once made my skin crawl. I didn't approach them. Not yet. But then Cameron turned and for the first time in almost 15 years we locked eyes. His face dropped. Not enough to alert anyone else, but I saw it. The flicker, the unspoken, "What is he doing here?" that passed across his perfectly groomed expression. He raised a glass at me, hesitated, then quickly turned away like he hadn't seen me at all. But I knew he had. And more importantly, now I knew he hadn't told them I was coming. I slipped out before the toast, walked back to the hotel, heart buzzing with adrenaline. My hands were shaking slightly, not with fear but with anticipation. They had asked me to come. They wanted me to be part of the family again. I was about to show them exactly what that meant, and I hadn't even opened my mouth yet. The morning of the wedding arrived, cloaked in mist and tension. I stood at the floor-length window of my hotel room, watching fog roll across the country club grounds like something out of a movie. I barely slept. Not from nerves, I wasn't nervous, but from memory. My mind replayed it all like a silent film. The cold concrete behind the chevron. The look on Mrs. Rodriguez's face when she pulled up. The silence at home when I returned. I ironed my shirt slowly, deliberately, pressing out every crease like it was a scar I could flatten. Then I reached for the old photo. Folded, faded. 12-year-old me staring into the distance, eyes wide with something between fear and disbelief. I slid it into my breast pocket behind a silk square close to my chest. The shuttle to Stone Creek was full of guests who didn't know me. Distant cousins, old neighbors, Amanda's sorority sisters. Everyone chattered about the venue, the weather, the dress. No one looked my way. I preferred it that way. When I stepped off the shuttle, the place had transformed. White chairs fanned out across the lawn like dominoes. A floral arch stood center stage, thick with ivory roses and eucalyptus. Classical music floated in the air, and waiters passed around glasses of champagne like it was liquid gold. It was frankly stunning. I kept to the back. I saw them again. My parents now seated in the front row, beaming at guests, shaking hands with the officiant. Dad laughed too loudly. Mom clutched a bouquet of white lilies that didn't suit her at all. Cameron stood off to the side in a tailored tuxedo, talking to someone I assumed was his best man. And Amanda? Well, she hadn't appeared yet. That's when it happened. An older woman, elegant, silver hair, a navy dress, approached me. She stared at me for a beat, then smiled politely. "You must be Wesley." I blinked. "I am. I'm Patricia Whitmore, Amanda's mother." "Of course." I straightened slightly and extended my hand. She took it with grace but also something else. Curiosity. "Cameron told us you might be here," she said. "I just wanted to say thank you for coming." My guard went up instantly. "He told you I might come?" She nodded, her smile tightening. "He said there had been some distance, but he hoped this would be a step toward healing." I could have laughed, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "He's an optimist." She smiled again, more awkwardly this time. "Well, regardless, welcome. And if you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask." I watched her walk away, her heels digging slightly into the grass. So Cameron had told Amanda's side of the family, but not mine. Interesting. The ceremony started like any other. Gentle music, guests shifting in their seats, the officiant clearing his throat. And then Amanda appeared, glowing, perfect, exactly the image you'd expect. The collective breath of the crowd drew in and held. She walked down the aisle to soft applause. Cameron waited under the arch like a prince accepting his crown, and I watched it all from the back row, silent. The ceremony was short. Predictable vows, nervous laughter. "I do," exchanged like currency. Then came the announcement, the kiss, the clapping. And just like that, they were married. The reception was where it all started to unravel. The reception was held in Stone Creek's grand ballroom, all glass walls overlooking the golf course. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen fireworks. Every table had a centerpiece of white hydrangeas and floating candles. Guests were directed to their seats via printed calligraphy cards. Mine didn't exist. I wandered casually to the table where my parents sat. Empty chair beside them. Name card, reserved for family. I hovered. Mom's eyes landed on me. "Oh, you made it," she said, sipping wine, not even standing. "Apparently," I said. Dad didn't speak. He looked at me, his expression unreadable, then leaned back slightly like I was a question he didn't want to answer. "I didn't see a seat card for me," I said calmly. Mom shrugged. "Must have been a mistake. Maybe you're at one of the other tables. We didn't handle the seating arrangements." "Sure you didn't." I glanced around. Tables were nearly full. Laughter rose from all directions. And then I spotted Cameron across the room, deep in conversation with Amanda and two older gentlemen in tuxedos. He saw me. He didn't smile. Instead, he walked directly toward me. "Hey," he said, dropping his voice low. "Glad you could make it." "No thanks to you," I replied. He exhaled. "Listen, I didn't think you'd actually come. But you invited me. I asked Mom and Dad to invite you." "That's different." My jaw clenched. "I figured you'd see the invite, toss it, and move on like you always do," he said. I looked at him, really looked at him. Tan, styled, confident. A man who'd never truly paid for anything in blood or silence. "I came because I wanted to see if you remembered," I said quietly. "Remember what?" I didn't answer. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the photo. I held it up, letting it speak. His expression shifted, subtle but real. Eyes darted to the photo, then to my face, then back. He swallowed. "That was years ago." "Yes," I said. "And you never said a word. Never told them to turn back. Never checked if I made it home alive." He looked around like someone might overhear. "Wesley, it was one bad night. You were dramatic even then. I thought you were over it." "Over it?" Something inside me stilled. "I'm not here to ruin your wedding," I said. "You can relax. But I am staying until the speeches." He looked at me again as if he wasn't sure whether I was bluffing. I wasn't. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's surgical. And I had a toast prepared, one they'd never forget. The ballroom lights dimmed as waiters cleared the last of the dinner plates. Guests buzzed in a champagne haze, some leaning back with full stomachs, others swaying to a jazz quartet tucked in the corner. Cameron and Amanda sat at a long head table, their names in gold script behind them. Everything sparkled, the wine glasses, the silverware, even the people. A man in a powder blue suit clinked his glass. The room quieted. "It's time for a few words from the people who know the bride and groom best." There was polite applause, and Amanda's father stood to speak first. His voice was smooth, rehearsed, a blend of wealth and warmth. He talked about Amanda's childhood, her dreams, the first time she mentioned Cameron. He even cracked a joke about Cameron being so charming, we didn't even realize he was trying to marry up. Everyone laughed. Next came the best man, Cameron's college roommate, who kept things light and funny. Something about fraternity parties, Cameron's inability to cook, and how lucky he was to have found Amanda. It was the kind of speech you expect. A little heart, a little humor, no sharp edges. Then the MC took the mic again and glanced down at a list. "And finally, we have a special toast from Wesley." The room went quiet. All eyes shifted. My parents froze mid-sip. Cameron's jaw tightened. Amanda blinked in confusion. And I stood up. I walked slowly to the mic, ignoring the awkward shifting around me. A few guests whispered. Some looked puzzled. Others simply stared, unsure of who I was or why I was speaking. I tapped the mic once. It rang through the room. "Good evening," I said, voice steady. "I'm Wesley, Cameron's younger brother." A few heads turned sharply now. The words landed like a ripple in still water. I could almost hear the murmurs begin to circulate. "He has a brother?" "I wasn't sure I was going to come tonight," I continued. "In fact, I spent the last few weeks thinking about whether I should. You see, I haven't spoken to my family in 14 years. Silence. Not the good kind, the kind that sucks the air out of the room. I got a wedding invitation out of nowhere. No call, no email, just a card and a note that said, "It would mean a lot to the family if you came." I let the words sit, then I pulled the photo from my pocket. This is me at 12 years old. I held it up between two fingers. Guests craned their necks to see. This was taken the morning after my parents left me at a gas station 85 miles from home. I had spilled a Dr. Pepper in the car, and instead of scolding me, they left. Told me to man up and figure it out. The crowd shifted. Uneasy glances. The sound of a wine glass being gently set down. They didn't come back. They didn't call. I slept behind a dumpster. The only reason I made it home was because a teacher picked me up the next day. I never got an apology. Not from my parents. Not from Cameron. And until this wedding invitation arrived, I thought they were all perfectly happy pretending I didn't exist. I looked at my parents. Dad's face was pale. Mom's mouth hung slightly open, as if she was trying to summon a response but couldn't find one fast enough. "Now, I'm not here to—" I looked back at Cameron. "So consider this my gift to you." I placed the photo on the head table right in front of him. A reminder of what family looks like when you turn your back on it. Then I turned slowly and walked away from the mic. No applause, just stunned silence and a few audible gasps. And as I walked past my parents' table, I heard my mother hiss my name, barely a whisper. My father started to rise, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I exited through the side doors and walked out into the cool Texas night, the music now distant behind me. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shaking. I was free. But freedom is a strange thing. It doesn't always come with peace right away. Sometimes it just leaves a silence behind, the kind that makes you wonder what happens next. I had made my move, but the fallout was still coming. The drive back to the hotel was quiet. No jazz band, no clinking glasses, no performative laughter echoing off marble walls. Just the hum of tires against asphalt and the low whisper of my thoughts catching up with me. I didn't go back to my room right away. Instead, I took a walk down one of the golf cart paths behind the hotel, winding between perfectly manicured fairways under a star-filled sky. The tension in my chest had unraveled thread by thread with every step I took away from that ballroom. I could still hear my mom's sharp gasp, see Cameron's carefully composed face fracture in real time, and feel the confused stares of strangers trying to process what had been deliberately erased from the family photo. For most of my life, I believed I was the ghost in my own family. But tonight, I had reminded them I was flesh and blood and memory. And memory is a dangerous thing, especially when the people around you rely on forgetting. Back at the hotel, I found a voicemail waiting from a number I didn't recognize. "Wesley, it's Amanda." Her voice was low, calm, but brittle. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect that. I wish someone had told me. I just wanted you to know I'm not mad you said what you did. You deserve to. And I'm sorry. She hung up without giving me a number to call back. That was the first apology I'd received in 14 years. And it wasn't even from my family. I left early the next morning. No breakfast, no drawn-out goodbyes, just a short email to the front desk asking them to process my checkout. I didn't feel like waiting around to see the aftermath. I knew my parents. I knew Cameron. They'd either pretend it never happened or scramble to spin it into a misunderstanding. Maybe both. But I also knew the photo was still sitting on the head table when I left. I kept the suit, tossed the tie, and went home. And once I was home, really home, in my small Austin apartment where Buddy greeted me with excited barks and a wagging tail, something strange happened. I started sleeping better. Waking up earlier. I found a new rhythm. My code felt cleaner, my mind sharper. I took Buddy on longer walks. Started writing again. Short stories, essays, anything to pour the storm in my head into something that made sense. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I wasn't proving anything anymore. I wasn't a shadow. I wasn't the forgotten son. I was here. I had survived. And now I was truly living. So when people ask me how it felt, standing in front of my family and showing them the truth, I just smile. Because the truth is, the best revenge isn't watching them crumble. It's watching yourself rise in full daylight while they're still trying to rewrite the dark. And I've never looked back.